Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, guys, I am joined by the up-and-coming writer, director, actor, editor, composer. I could keep going on forever. William Instone. William, my friend, how you doing?
Hey, how's it doing? Great, man. It's wet and cold here in Texas. So
It is snowy and cold here in Michigan, my friend, so I totally understand.
you're feeling it a lot worse than we are. It's cold. We're wimps when it comes to cold down here in Central Texas.
Oh, yeah. Well, so you guys know, William has done many a short film, including Candy's Room, The Limit, and Among the Dead. But what we are really want to discussing here, the past is in the past. You guys can check that stuff out. I have his links down here in the description, but I want to talk about the future a little bit. We got Butcher's Bluff coming up, and you are a writer of that. You are a co-director, as well as you are playing the Hogman.
Sir.
Without being too spoilery, what can you tell us about Butcher's Bluff?
Well, just in a nutshell, it's a throwback 80s style slasher film set in modern times about a group of Texas college film students that are going to make their thesis film about a folk legend in this small town called Emerald Hills about the Hogman of Butcher's Bluff. He's this legend that's like kind of like elusive that no one knows about. All these people have gone missing in this town. So that's the whole plot, is they're going to go see what they can find out if this is true or not. And a lot of the film is like they're interviewing people and, trying to find out what's going on in this town. Some people are believers, some people aren't. There's a lot of sketchy redneck types, and it's a lot of fun. Practical effects,
Yes.
a couple of familiar faces in the film, such as Bill Oberst Jr., who I've said is a treasure to indie horror films. He's by far the best working actor in the genre right now, in my opinion. We had Paul T. Taylor, another fantastic actor who was Pinhead in Hellraiser Judgment, and then we the legend Brick Stevens, and who needs no introduction. And we actually have Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Bill Johnson, who's a personal friend, and Austinite. So we have a cool little scene with Leatherface. So it's a really fun film. We're about 90% done shooting it right now. It's just been a blast. But as I said, it's cold and wet right now. We got to wait for the trees to get green again. So
Right. Man, I'm so excited about it. And I do want to make a little side note here on something you just said. Bill Oberst Jr. absolutely is a treasure. One of the nicest guys I've ever had the privilege of meeting. And I'm so happy that you get to work with him and that he gets to work with you. From the conversation I've been having with you, I really enjoy your company as well. So I am so excited about this film. Guys, we do have a little bit of time left on their Indiegogo campaign. It's right down here in the description. Not only are you helping out indie film, but you get rewarded for it as well. I know the reward isn't the important part, but it's there. You do get perks for helping out creating this indie film. And something we've learned through COVID is, these Hollywood films, they don't get affected as much. They do get affected, but these indie films, the backbone, something that we all love, fan-made films and indie films, they suffer the most. So any way that you can help out, please help out. The links are down here in the description, and I promise you're not going to regret it. From the conversation we've had, Hogman's already making his impact. So for you to have your name on this in any type of way that you helped out could really mean a lot to not only him, not only me, but to all indie film in general, because you're really helping out with something that we all want to be a part of. So you said you're going to start filming again once the trees get green down in Texas.
Right.
Understand that.
Right. I got some interior scenes that we're going to be shooting at an insane asylum, and the bar scene with, Bill Johnson will be done in March. There's opportunities for you to be in that scene with Bill Johnson in the Indiegogo. So check it out. There's all kinds of cool perks, missing persons posters. We have T-shirts. We have all kinds of really cool merch. So again, you'll want to check that out. It's going to be really a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
We've had so much fun making this
right down here in the description, guys. Make sure you are checking this out.
I wanted to say one thing, because you did make a cool point about Hollywood films, independent films. Right now, because of COVID, though, it's the indie filmmakers' time to shine, because a lot of these Hollywood films are on hold because of unions. They're not able to put out their films, so we can. So we can knock these things out, and this has never been a better time for us to try to get distribution and get it out there, and more people can see our stuff. So again, I try to find a positive in all the crap that's going on in the world, and that is a positive for us indie filmmakers, because we are able to work with our small budgets and our small crews and put out some stuff.
And me and you were talking about it too. The horror genre, not only the fans, but the actors are so willing to still be a part of this stuff. As long as things are safe and they can feel safe in their shooting environment, everybody's so happy and willing to still be a part of all this stuff, which is so cool. And it's something that as a horror fan, it's really awesome to see when you become a part of that family, how close knit everybody is and how much everybody cares about what they're doing with each other. So as long as we're all staying safe, making smart decisions, using common sense, personal hygiene, we should be fine. Yeah. So I'm very excited. I can't tell you how excited I am about Butcher's Bluff, and just to have you on here, it really does mean a lot, man. So I want to thank you again, and any updates you have, please send them my way. I would be happy to let everybody know, but you guys don't have to wait for me. You can follow his social media right down here. You can get updates right from him. So that we talked about.
I'm easy to find. So
yeah, we talked
I reply to your messages.
Yeah. What's that?
Mm-hmm. That's how I reply to messages. So go ahead and drop me a line. I'm easy to find on Facebook. So
yeah. So yeah, make sure you guys are checking it out, because this is something you're not going to want to miss. I'm telling you, this is the conversation. Like I said, we just had about Hogman. He's already making an impact, and the movie's not even done being filmed yet. So that shows you just how influential this is going to be on all of us, man. Congratulations. You got something gold in your hands right now.
Thank you, buddy.
Oh, no problem. Now we talked about the future, the present, a little bit about the past, but now I want to take it back to the past, really to the past. I want to talk about the first horror movie that you ever watched, what got you started in the genre, and your first horror movie was?
Okay. The very first one that I can remember seeing, and I only remember parts of it, and that was Dawn of the Dead with the helicopter thing chopping the guy's head off. And that's all I really remembered of the movie. And then I remembered, because I was very young still at that time. And then I remembered The Exorcist, with the bed and the throwing up. But again, I never really saw those movies all the way through. The first movie I really saw all the way through was in the movie theater with a babysitter when I was about maybe 7 or 8. And that was a Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And it fucking terrified me. Yeah, there's the shirt. It terrified me, man. I tell you, I was so scared. And, for a long time, I'm not even gonna lie. I loved it, and I even the sequels, and I kept watching it, but it still scared the shit out of me, So
something I've said on this podcast a lot. I will never give anything a 5-star rating. It won't happen. I think that there's always room for improvement on something.
Right.
I've given one movie a 4.75. That movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street. To me, this is, if you take out the last 5 minutes of this movie, with the mother getting dragged back through the door with the blow up doll, I think this is the perfect, not just horror movie, but the perfect movie.
Yeah.
There's so much about it that is just absolutely amazing. So we know about how old you were, but we know you were with your babysitter in the movie theater, and at that young age, I gotta know, which scene affected you the most?
Oh God, it would probably be when they're in the school and Tina's in the body bag. And that snake comes out of her mouth and all that. I mean, that was so just gross and terrifying. And I just remembered that's the noise, the sound, and just like a little slither of it coming out. And then later on to find out that Amanda actually let them put that stuff in her mouth and stuff.
Yes.
It was just like that's taking one for the team. So yeah, there was that one that was really, and then of course everybody, when you saw the blood coming out, Johnny Depp getting sucked in the bed, you never wanted to lay in a bed again.
Right.
I mean, when you're a kid, like I'm scared he's under my bed, he's gonna pull me in my bed, So I'd have to say it's between those two, but if I had to choose one, it's the body bag in there. That was really sick.
Oh, and the thing about this movie is, you could talk about all the iconic moments of this movie. You just talked about the waterbed. You talked about Tina. I mean, Tina's death, at that young age seeing. And what I love about this scene is you don't see Freddy Krueger when she's taking up, when he's pulling her up the wall. And Jesus Garcia, who plays Rod, is just, Tina.
Yeah.
She's going up, and then, her chest gets cut open, and then she goes up the wall. And, what a scene that really got me, and it's a little bit of a mix here, is I watched it at a very young age as well. My parents owned a video store growing up, and so I was always in the horror section grabbing horror movies and taking them home. But when Freddy's walking down the alley and his arms outstretched,
oh yes, that was so. And when he says, "This is God,"
this is God.
I and that was just like, oh my god, that's
man.
And
I can't tell you. And one thing I want to touch on, I'll talk about it a little more here in a second, but you talked about watching the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels as well. When it comes to the sequels, and Freddy in general, 1, 2, 3, and 4 to me, 2 is probably at the lowest rung of the 4 of them. But man, when it comes to the one-liners, like, this is God, or hey Tina, watch this, or in 3, welcome to prime time, bitch. Like,
let's get high.
He
sticks that was so awesome. Even in 5, when Amanda Kruger comes up and in the beginning, and he's like, we'll see, bitch. So I'm gonna stop you. Like, we'll see, bitch. It's just like he's calling his mother a bitch. I mean, it's just like, it's just Freddy had the best. And Rick, you're such a meatball. And he became a comedian, and less scary as it went on, but they were great. Because you age with him and you watch his progression. I mean, I remember seeing the second one because Freddy barely spoke in the first one. I mean, he said his little one-liners, like, and the second one, he's talking, we got special work, Jesse. You got the body, I got the brain. You're all my children. He's saying all these things, and I'm just like, oh man, Freddy's talking. He was still dark and still very evil in part 2, and that was cool. And 2 was still pretty scary. When he cuts his chest, and then Freddy comes out of his chest, for like his skin falls off of him. He stands up, and picks up his hat, and just like puts. I mean, that's a classic moment.
I think 2 is definitely the darkest Freddy
I
in
like
the series.
2 a lot, and that's the thing. Even though it's probably the worst one, like as far as being judged, I really liked it. And I thought it was cool to have a male scream queen. I didn't know that's what they were because I was still a kid. I mean, they came out like a year apart from each other, and I saw that one in the theater too. Because that's how messed up I was. Same babysitter. Like, let's go see the other one now. But looking back at it, it's really good. And I mean, I think obviously there's a lot of issues with it for sure. It's and again, it probably should be at the bottom of the list from the horror movies, but it is still a good movie, which is a testament, in my opinion, to the Elm Street series.
And it's funny you say that, because I think, and this is just my opinion, I can't state fact here because I can't speak on other people, but a lot of people I talk to are like, oh, that's the gay one. That's the gay one. And it's like, dude, every single slasher movie has fucking titties and ass in it. If you can't handle one movie with homoerotic moments in it, I think that says more about you than it does the film.
What do you think Hellraiser is, man?
Oh my God, for sure.
Hellraiser's awesome.
And that's never been a problem to me. The gayness of part 2. It's just, to me, I've always been more a fan of the comedic Freddy. I mean, I still rank 2 above Dream Child, Freddy's Dead, and the remake, but to me, 1, 3, and 4 are just amazing.
Definitely better than the remake. I love the New Nightmare. I think a New Nightmare was definitely high up there. Wes Craven really took it back and made Freddy evil again. And but even then, he had some little one-liner things that were cool to say.
And a New Nightmare, that if you don't have a New Nightmare, the horror genre wouldn't be what it is today. Because of a New Nightmare, we got Scream, and we know what Scream did to the horror genre.
Rebooted everything.
And that started with, I mean, New Nightmare is Scream of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It's very meta. It's very pop culture-y. I mean, like, without Wes Craven really stuck his toes in the water with a New Nightmare, and then he just fucking dove in for Scream, and it was amazing. God rest his soul. I can't wait for Scream 5 or Scream, whatever you want to call it. But
we lost a fucking very, very talented filmmaker in Wes Craven. I mean, it's something a lot of people, hardcore horror fans, don't really like him. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, he was a sellout" or whatever. I thought he was great.
Loved him. He rejuvenated the horror genre more than once.
And
people that want to argue that, I tell people all the time that people want to argue with me, whether you love or hate Scream, you cannot deny the impact. Look at the horror movies that came out the 3 years before Scream and the 3 years after Scream, and you tell me that Scream didn't have a major part in putting a fucking needle in the arm of the horror genre and bringing it right back to life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was definitely it rebooted it completely. And I lived through it. I remember, again, I saw Scream in the theater. That was at the time where the Drew Barrymore crush was real. And so, like, hey, I'm going to see Drew Barrymore. Oh, they killed her in the first scene. Son of a bitch. Like,
if only E.T. was here to heal her up.
But then again, it was cool.
Oh, I loved it. I'm a huge Scream fan. So I can say I'm with you. I went and seen that in the theater, and I absolutely loved it. When we talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
The sound of the claws. That was just iconic. Of the screeching of the going across the pipes and shit like that. And just that intro. I remember the first time seeing that intro of him building the claw and just the sound he makes when he sticks it out. Like, oh, man, just that sound. I mean, which is a testament to what sound design will do to you for a horror film.
Oh, absolutely. They could live and die by it. Something we've talked about on the podcast before is look at Halloween, Jaws. Look at those two films. People know the scores of that, even if they've never seen them. Anytime you go swimming, how many, or Halloween, the piano theme, people know that even if they haven't seen it, that it shows how special a score can be at 1-2, Freddy's coming for you. People know that even if they've never seen the film, and that shows just how important these things can be. And we talked about which scene affected you the most. I want to kind of take it in a little bit of a different direction here. What's your favorite scene from Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh man, that's a hard one. There's because like you said, there's so many good moments in that film. I could tell you another moment I really liked a lot was when he kills Rod in the jail cell. He walks through the bars and you see the thing going up, but you don't actually see what's there. But then she's looking through there and checking and watching him and screaming. He won't wake up. I mean, that was super cool. I really did like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's a hard one. I really can't. It's like picking your favorite child,
Right. And the thing about this movie too is we were talking about how you're using a lot of practical effects for Butcher's Bluff.
Right.
One practical effect I would like to talk about from this movie, because when people talk about practical effects in the horror genre, the three films that really stick out to me are A Nightmare on Elm Street, An American Werewolf in London, and The Thing. Those are the three practical effects icons for me. And one practical effect that I really enjoy from this movie is the latex on the wall. And you see Freddy's head when Nancy's in the bed. That's one scene that, in the remake, they did it all with CGI. And if you watch these two scenes,
it didn't look good.
No, and that's perfect. The way his face comes through and then backs right up. And then she puts the crucifix up there, I am just such a fan of how they did the practical effects in this movie. And the movie's dark when you watch it now. And like I said, Freddy had 7 minutes of screen time. And that's how much of an impact he has on you, that in those 7 minutes, look what he turned into. Right. And that shows the genius of what they did with that film. And we've talked about many of the kills in this movie. Which kill would you say is your favorite kill from this film?
God, that's hard. See, that's not like so many of them. Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, and there's actually not that many. And that's the whole thing. I mean, you really got 3 kills, and then you got Mom at the end, which was, like I said, ridiculous. So I guess of the 3, Tina is probably the best, just because, again, it goes up on the wall. And again, like you touched on it earlier, I didn't understand it as a kid. Like, what's going on there? How is she going up the wall? Which was kind of cool in New Nightmare when you actually see Freddy walking up the wall and dragging her in the hospital, and they remade that scene. And so, like, okay, so that's what he looked like when he was killing Tina, So then that's kind of like, okay, because I didn't understand it, but obviously you could see the slashes happening.
Yeah.
I'd have to say that's my favorite kill in the film.
Well, and they definitely went with quality over quantity in this movie when it comes to the kills, because the 3 kills, the real kills in this movie, are so memorable with Rod, with Tina, with Johnny Depp. Those 3 kills are just so amazing that you are. I mean, even Johnny Depp's, you're like, man, there's no way the human body holds that much blood. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you're like, it's so fucking cool.
Who
looking.
cares?
I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Who cares? That was awesome.
Oh, I love it, man. I got just a couple more for you. We talked about your first horror movie and what it meant to you being a Nightmare on Elm Street. Now we talked about Scream too, and now I'm gonna go Scream on you. What's your favorite scary movie, William? What is your favorite horror movie?
Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives.
Oh, nice, man.
Why? It's the perfect blend of horror and comedy. Mm-hmm. It's got a gothic feel. The cinematography is really good in it. It was just, I have to say, it's the movie I've watched the most, the horror movie I've watched the most, and is the direct inspiration of Butcher's Bluff is Friday the 13th 6.
That is awesome, man. That's so cool. Frank and Jason, man. I love that one.
He's when he became a zombie. And Jason is my favorite all-time killer. We talk a lot about Freddy, but I'm Team Jason because he has the most brutal kills, the highest body count of any killer.
Yep.
Other than Ghost Ship. But, we're not going there. they killed all those people in one scene.
Right. And it's funny you say that because the Holy Trinity to me has always been Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that Jason was the most creative with the kills.
Yeah.
Michael, that's why Jason was scariest to me. Michael Myers was scariest to me because it was the most realistic of the bunch. Yeah. Even though his kills were never very inventive, it's mostly just stabby, stabby, stabby.
Right.
And then Freddy was always the scariest to me because he was in your dreams and he could take the form and do whatever was scaring you the most. So each of them have their own amazing thing that makes them the scariest to me. But Jason is the one that I watched growing up the most as well. For me, it's Friday the 13th, Part 3. I love that one. And I think
I love it too. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's because that's the first Friday the 13th I watched and I watched the most of. But so I always end these with the same question, my friend. Always go back to it. Nightmare on Elm Street. We're ranking it on how it affected you, what this film means to you, overall production, quality of the film, 0 skulls being the worst, 5 skulls being the best. You can use half and quarter skulls. What would your ranking be of a Nightmare on Elm Street?
A solid 4.5. Not even thinking about it. Like you said, no one. There's always room for improvement, and like you said, so 4.5 is solid because I mean, again, like you said, it's almost the perfect horror film. Because everybody sleeps.
Yep.
Everybody sleeps. No matter how tough you are, strong you are, whatever, you're eventually going to fall asleep, and Freddy's going to get you. And if you end,
it doesn't matter how tough you are. Just ask Kincaid.
Yeah. And exactly. Look at that's Jason Voorhees because in Freddy versus Jason, even Jason slept, which is kind of weird. Zombie Jason was sleeping and he controlled him. So it can happen. Man,
I love it. I'm one of those people that, look, I get it. Freddy versus Jason is no masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. But man, when I was a kid and I saw Freddy's glove come up out of the ground and Jason goes to hell and take Jason's mask down.
You knew it was going to happen.
Oh my God. I freaked out. And I've heard many of the other script options they had. Like one was Freddy and Jason come back to Earth to see who can get the most kills for the devil to please him. And dude, there's been so many terrible scripts. I'm really glad with the one that they went with. That one made the most sense. So
you hear the one about Pinhead? They were supposed to fight. They were supposed to fight in hell, and all of a sudden Pinhead comes and wraps them up in chains and says that stops them from fighting or something like that. It was like that would have been cool, have to go down in hell and fight, and Pinhead's there as like a referee.
See, I love when one example I use is Bride of Chucky, when they use that you see in the police station, you see the Michael Myers mask, the chainsaw, Freddy's glove, Jason's mask, and then when they're in the bus or the van. And John Ritter gets all the nails in his face and he looks like Pinhead. And Chucky's like, why does that look so familiar?
Oh, it was great. I love the Bride of Chucky. It's so awesome. I mean, it's like it was so comedic. They went the comedy route. And I think good comedy, if it's done correctly in a horror film, it fits, because also we going back to like where I'm at right now on the lower budget things, we can't take it too serious.
Right.
So you got to put a little bit of humor in there. and I think your story is going to be forgiven a little bit more if you have it. And so again, we're talking about Freddy became comedic. Part 6 of Friday the 13th had the comedy. Chucky had he had the comedy. There's always those Ash, Evil Dead. Come on, so.
Evil Dead 2 is the ultimate sequel, better than the original, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Ash versus the Evil Dead show was fantastic.
Amazing, dude. And Ash versus the Evil Dead, I could talk about that all night. That's a TV show that made me cry, man. When Pablo got killed, dude, like I was like, no, not Pablo. Ash is all drunk and driving. Like I felt that, man. Like that's how invested I was. But William, don't go anywhere, man. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, I know I've said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. Make sure you're clicking these links down here in the description. We all love indie horror. We all love indie horror makers, and this guy works his ass off because he's not just a writer, which isn't saying, oh, just a writer, but he's not just a writer, not just a director, not just an actor, not just a producer, not just a photographer, not just a composer, not just an editor, but he does all of it. He works his ass off to try to give us the best possible product that we can have to entertain us. He spends his days with his passion doing something he loves, also to entertain us. So make sure you're giving him a follow, showing him the love and support that he deserves. As always, guys, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.